Hello everyone, welcome to BTPS. Today we are retrieving data from database using ASP.NET Core, and let's start. Open your Visual Studio. I have Visual Studio version 2019. Then we open now and create a new project. Select the template. We just select ASP.NET Core web application for creating the ASP.NET Core web application, and click the next button and rename our application name. Click to create and select the template. We just working on the model view controller MVC, so then we just select the web application MVC template. And my project is created. Go to the solution explorer and we just see we have some folders like controller, model and views. Expand controller folder and I have home controller. It's there. And just delete all by default methods from our home controller. And create a new index method. Return view. And then we see why we also create a index method, because home controller and its index method is called from domain. Like this, we just run our application and we have the home controller and its index method. We just see it's my localhost and port number, like a domain name, and by default ASP.NET MVC call the home controller's index method from the our domain name and localhost port number. We just see our home page and we just see its declaration, like to go to the startup class and see its configure method. It's there, and yeah, it's there. Name default and template controller name home. It's by default called to the home controller and its index method. ASP.NET Core MVC is by default called to its home controller and its index method. If we want to change, so then change from their controller name and its index, action method. and then just create the our database. So then open your SQL server. I have SQL server 2008, so then we just open now and connect and create a new database. And it's our database name student table, and create a new table. ID, data type, in, and set ID column to identity auto increment. Like, go to the column property and identity specification section, and is identity to set as true. Sorry, yes. And just create second and set ID as a primary key. Second column is name, it's n worker 50, and third is email, n worker 50, and last is city, it's also n worker 50. And save, Control S for saving the table, Control S, table name student. And for retrieving connection string for this database, so then just go to the solution explorer of the Visual Studio and just click on the connect button and switch to the SQL server and get its server name and just paste in the Visual Studio and select our database student table and OK. Yeah, it's there. And go to the property for the getting connection string. Connection string is there, and just copy now and I just create a model class for the student. Right click on the model folder, go to the solution explorer and right click on the model folder and add new class and rename student and click to edit. And just create some properties. ID, and we just create ID, name, email and city. we just insert the value in the database and retrieve the value from the database. So we just create the insert. So then we just right click on the index method and add view, name index template, create template, and model class student. And view is created, and we just run this view. For the testing, ID, name, city, and I see our ID is the identity, so then I don't want to insert the ID, so we just copy, cut, and I want to, we just insert the ID, it's there, and just click on the show button. So then load data, name, city, and email in related this ID. So we just create the ID field and out of the form and create a new button. Yeah, we just name we just do the name, city, and email, and just click on the create button. So then this create button is redirect to the its index post method and save the data in the database, and then we just do the ID and just click on the show button. So then its ID related data from the database we just store in the name, city, and email field. So we just code for the create button index post method and just go, it's a index method, it's by default get and post method, so we just change this to get method and we just create a second method as a post method. And it's a get method, and pass student parameter and connect to the database. This SQL connection class is defined in a system.data.sql client namespace. So we just use the namespace and create an object and paste the connection string in the SQL connection class constructor. We just go Server Explorer and right click on our server and go to the properties, and it's a connection string, so Control A and Control C and paste it there. And just create the SQL command object and write insert query, table name, we just student, yeah. Student name, email, city. Because my ID is identity, so then we don't pass the ID in our insert query because it's auto increment. We just confirm our sequence of the ID, name, email and city, name, email and city, and open the connection. For the execute this query, command dot execute non-query, because it's a insert query, so then we just call the execute non-query method. And we just change its ID property and we just run our application for the testing insert operation. Enter the name and email. Sorry. SQL command need the SQL connection. So then we don't and just rerun our application. And my data is inserted, so we just go to the SQL server and check the yeah, my data is inserted and ID is 1. Close the dubbing. In this field, ID field, we pass the ID in the ID field and click on the button, show button, and then we just show our data in our name, email and city field. So we just use some JavaScript for doing this. We just add the on-click event on our show button and define a function and get the ID from this ID field. So we just use the document dot get element by ID. My input field ID is the underscore ID, so we just use this underscore ID dot value and hold this on our any variable value and send this value to other locations. We just create a index, we just create an action method for doing this. And its action name is the show. And have one parameter in type ID. For retrieving some data, we just SQL select query to execute for the getting some data from the database. So then we just create a new connection, SQL connection, and pass the connection string and open the connection. Make the SQL command object and write the select query. Select all from student where ID is equal to ID. And call the execute reader method. And this execute reader function SQL return the SQL data reader object. If SQL data reader object reads some value, reads some rows, SQL data reader method SQL data reader object has a read function. This read function is get the one row at a time. So then we just call the SQL, because ID is primary and the ID is primary, then the data, when we compare this using the ID, so then this query return only one row because ID is primary. When the data reader, SQL data reader reads some value, so then we just hold that value in the in the student class object. So then we just create the student object and its property to supply value dot city dot name is equal to and column name dot to string, because the SQL data reader indexer return the object type value. And student dot city SQL data reader city dot to string and student dot email. Email dot to string. And send this object, it's student dot ID, because I don't need the ID for the swing, because and send this object to the index view, because index views is the strongly typed view, and the index view has some field name, city and email, and it's a strongly typed view, student type. And then we just send the student object, and then this view and this view, its email field, name field and city field, pass this value, its object value to its email field, name field and city field. So then we just pass the student object to the index view. How we will do this? We just use the return keyword and view method and pass the index and this object, student object, because our index view is the strongly typed view, and then we just send its object, then its property value is set as its field like a name, city and email ID. We have this function, we just select the value, select the data using the value, in our JavaScript field, it's a string script tag, we just on click method show data and get the value from the ID and send this ID value to our show action method. So how we will do this? We just window dot location dot href, window dot location dot href. We just pass the location of our index method in there using the HTML helper. What is the HTML helper? We just see in the previous, sorry I don't use the HTML helper is get the value from it's working like a same HTML, it's generate the HTML using the C# code. We just use the URL dot action, and this action method we just pass our action name, so and its ID. So it's my action name and controller name. My controller name is a home controller. And set this value there. And we just run our application. And set their break pointer. We also insert a data arrow. You just check there, yeah, its ID is 1 and we just pass the 1. And what is the wrong with our code? And we are getting some error. It's there. We just use this because it's the value, and then we just rerun our application. And ID 1, yeah, my application is working. Name BTPS, email, we just send the, and my application is working. So thank you for watching, and we just perform the CRUD operation using the entity framework core in the ASP.NET Core in the next lecture. So subscribe our channel, and in this lecture we just perform the CRUD operation like a insert and select operation using the SQL command and SQL query like this. But we just perform the insert and show and select operation using the entity framework. And thank you for watching.